Now, for the Breakout game, it's an arcade game that is originally developed by the Atari Incorporated. And the game here was created in 1976, so napakatagal na, no? And nalaro ko pa to sa Brick Game and other consoles out there. So, we have one paddle, one ball, and 30 bricks. And I have created an image for a ball, paddle, and a brick in Inkscape. So, meron tayo ditong, nasan yung ano natin? Breakout, ito. We have here the following resources for the Breakout game. We have 3, diba? So in this game, the player moves a paddle on the screen and bounces a ball or balls. So the objective is to destroy bricks in the top of the window, and it consists of 7 different files. We have common, we have sprite, we have ball, we have paddle, we have brick, we have board, and the breakout. So nagawa ko na yan dito, pero tanggalin ko na lang muna ulit yan dito. Burahin ko na lang siya. Okay? So let's create here a package and let's name that as Breakout Game. Alright, so that should be Breakout Game. First of all, let's try to look at the module here and let's try to understand kung anong nangyayari. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's create first the following Java files: commons, sprite, ball, paddle, brick, and board, tapos si breakout. So meron tayong 7. Number 1 is commons. And we have here another Java class, which is sprite. We have here ball. We have here the paddle. We have here the brick. And we also have here the board. Ito yung pinakamahabang part, yung board. Yung iba madali lang ang implementation niyan. Next is we have the Breakout Java, and this is where your game initially starts. So this is the main method. So breakout. So syempre, as usual, gawin muna natin si main method natin, 'di ba? So si main method natin, zoom in ko na siya. Let's extend JFrame. And let's also add here the java.out.event queue natin. And public static void main string args. We have here event queue dot invoke later, and lambda expression, anonymous inner class, breakout, and I'll name that as game is equal to new breakout. So constructor, lagyan natin ng constructor yan, no? Game dot set visibility true. Now let's create the constructor. Public and public breakout, and init UI. Okay. Tapos si private void init UI natin. This is where we will be placing, of course, the new board. Tawagin natin yun mamaya. Let's set the title. And I'll name this as breakout. And the default close operation as exit and close. And, oops, exit and close. Bakit ganun? Exit on close. Tagaganyan. Sige. Iyan ko na yan. We have here location relative to null. I don't want anyone to resize this, kaya gawin natin siyang false. And important, ilagay natin siya as a whole. So ilalagay ko yan ipapack ko yan as minsanan. Alright, so let's eliminate this board issue. Lagay ko tong si breakout at Java natin dito muna. Zoom in ko para makita na lahat. Yan. So gawin natin si board.java. For the meantime, lagay natin dito si private class board and extends the jpanel. Yan. And there you go. Nawala na si error. Diba? So si board, lagay din natin dito. Mamaya natin to trabahuin. Let's try to take a look tuloy. Take a look here sa may natin, module. Now, the commons.java file here, this is actually where most of the common constants are being placed. Ang purpose nito kasi, this is where the bricks are set. Okay? Yung mismong sizes natin. You know, width and height, store the dimension of the board, and when the ball passes the bottom edge, the game is over. N of bricks is the number of bricks in the game. Init paddle X and Y are initial coordinates of the paddle. The init ball X and init ball Y are initial coordinates of the ball object. The delay is the initial delay and before the task is to be executed. And the period is the time in milliseconds between the successive task executions that form game cycles. So maiksi lang itong si commons. But then, for your information po, si commons here, this will not serve as a class but rather an interface. Ang interface kasi, it's like a class, pero we are actually planning to inherit multiple classes. But then in Java, it's impossible for us to do that. Imposible po na maka-inherit tayo or maka-extend tayo ng dalawa. Halimbawa, itong extend na to, hindi pwede kasing more than one ang extend natin. Not unless the other class can be converted as interface na tinatawag natin. So here, let's declare the following. We have the width, we have the height, and which is 400. We have the bottom edge, which is 390. We also have here the number of bricks equals 30. We also have here the init underscore paddle underscore x ba yun? And the size of the paddle here is, in the position, nasa 200 position siya. Tapos si paddle y natin, paddle underscore y, is in the position of 360. And tapos si init ball underscore x, the position is 230. Position to ha, initial position nila. Init ball, tapos si int ball y is equal to 355 x and y position, and si period niya, which is 10. So ilagay ko tong si commons natin dito sa may taas kasi maliit lang naman yan. Okay. Alright, so we're good with the interface comments. Let's now proceed with the next step here in which we will create. This is what we call the Sprite Class. Ang Sprite Class kasi, this will serve as the parent class. Okay, the base class for everything. This is where, this is actually the class where we will be inheriting sa lahat natin. Like for example, yung ball natin, yung break, and the paddle. So it will get the method like the get image and their position of the get x and get y method. So napaka-importante na magawa natin din si Sprite.java natin. Again, this will serve as our parent class. So import java.out.image, import java.out.rectangle for their position. So let's declare the following variables: int x, int y, tapos int image width, int image height, tapos image. Ayan. Okay, so first of all, gawin natin si setX na method in which we'll simply have a parameter of x. Tapos set natin yan as this.x is equal to x followed by the int getX, the setters naman, getX. We have here return the value of whatever the value of x na ibabato natin in the from the other class. Yan. Let's copy paste in this one and let's change everything into y. This is y position. This is y. This should be y. This should be y. This should be y and y. And so okay na ang x and y natin. So we have 4 different methods. What else? And si image width and image height naman ang gawin natin. For the image, get image width. Yan. Let's return image width. Okay. Image width. Tapos si get image height natin. Let us simply return an image height. Madali lang, no? Ano lang ito eh. Parent class. Para hindi na tayo paulit-ulit na i-declare to later on. Let's also set here the image, get image. Return image. Ano pa ba? Yung rectangle natin na get rec. Okay. See, rectangle here, this will simply serve and kumbaga dito lang natin ilalagay yung mga ano natin, positions ng image natin later on. So we have image, ano nga ba to? Get width, tapos null, doesn't have values as of the moment. Image that get height, it doesn't have values as of the moment. Rectangle get rec. Yan. And let's get their dimensions. Void get image dimensions, which is image width, get width, null, and image height is equal to image that get height, null. Ayan. So far, so good. Okay na okay ang ating Sprite.java. So, sige. Screenshot natin. So, we have the following data fields. X and Y, image width and image height. Ayan, image. We have here set X, set Y, get X, get Y, and the return or the void. I mean, yung mga void and return natin. So, ilagay ko yun dito ngayon sa may gitna para makita natin. Ayusin ko to para mas kita ng lahat. Ayan. Feel free to chat kung ano yung hindi nyo masyadong nakita. Okay? So, balik tayo dun sa module natin. Now, according here, dito sa may next class na gagawin natin, the Brick Class. Ang Brick Class natin, ito po yan, no? Kung natatandaan natin yung itsura ng Brick Class natin, that will simply, that simply look like the brick itself. Yung, saan ba yun? Java 2D Game Programming, Idea Projects, ito, Resources, Breakout, itong breaking na to. Yung kulay blue-green na yan. So, we have here a private boolean destroyed variable in which will simply keep the state of the brick if it is, existing or not. So, kapag ka nag-collide na yung brick dyan, may mangyayari. Okay? So, let's add here or let's work on with the brick.java. So, si brick.java, maiksi lang naman ito. Okay? So, we have here the image icon. Let's import that first. javax.swing, that image icon. And we have here the java.out, ganyan. And since we would like to inherit all of this from the sprite, let's create here or let's use the extends keyword para ma-inherit natin yan. So, we have here the private destroyed, private boolean destroyed. Let's create here the brick constructor with a parameter int x and int y, which actually came from here. Dito, sa mismong sprite natin. Diba? Kaya nga pagka tatawagin natin si init brick later on, yan, tatawagin natin yun eh. Siya yung magre-reference sa sarili niya. Private void init brick. Oops. Yan. Int x, int y, and there you go. So we have here this.x is equal to x, this.y is equal to y. Now, initially, let's add here a value of destroyed, which is false. Tapos, i-load natin ngayon sa image natin. So, let's load here the image. And so, load image here will simply get the source of the brick natin. So, image icon ii is equal to new image icon. Then sa loob nito is src, resources, breakout, tapos breaky.png. Tama ba yung spelling ko ng breaky? Breaky.png. Yan, so far so good. And tawagin natin ngayon si getImage that will simply return the image itself. ii image is equal to ii.getImage. Return natin yan. Let's also get here the getImage dimensions. Tatawagin natin yung image dimension niya dito. Yan. So whatever the dimension of the breaky will actually be stored in the image width and the image height from the sprite. Okay. And lastly, since we have created here a boolean destroyed na data field, gawin natin si boolean if it is destroyed. Let's return here the value of destroyed, which is initially false. And let's set that one, set destroyed. Let's set here a value of val, kung saan whatever the value of the destroyed later on, i-store natin yan kay val na variable. Ayan. So, wala nang problema yung ating Break.Java. So far yan lang naman eh, ang brick natin. Create lang natin siya. Nilagay lang natin yung image natin. This.x is destroyed equals false. Load image, get image dimension. Okay. So, lagay ko yan dito sa may part na to. Kasi yung board, yan yung pinakamahaba sa lahat. Yung board.java na yan. Alright. So, that's brick.java. Let's take a look kung ano yung susunod nating next. Ball. Ito. Yung ball.java naman, okay, we have here the move method, which simply moves the ball on the board. If the ball hits the borders, the directions are changed accordingly. So kapag ka na-hit niya pala yung border dito, kapag ka gumanyan siya, pag nag-collide siya, mag-change din yung position, yung value mo. And these two methods are actually called when the ball hits the paddle or a brick. So let's work on with the ball method here. Itong si sprite, lagay ko na lang dito. Okay na tayo sa sprite method, no? So lagay ko na lang siya dito. So kahit na hindi ko na siya masyadong i-zoom in, okay lang sa inyo. So we have here the board. Tago ko muna yung board na yan. Diyan muna siya. Ayan. So yung brick, baka hindi nyo patapos. Yung sprite, hindi nyo patapos. Ayan. So, proceed tayo dito ngayon sa ball na class. See, ball class here, we have, again, we will be importing .image icon. Extend ulit natin si sprite. Parang kanina lang. Tapos, let's declare here the following data fields. The direction of the ball in X position and the direction of the ball in Y position. Let's create here the constructor ball. Yan. Init ball. Tawagin natin si init ball ngayon. Si private void init ball will simply set the initial value of x dir is equal to 1 and the y dir is equal to 1 as well. Let's call the load image. Same lang kanina. Let's also get the image dimensions as well. And this time, let's call another method in which we will be resetting the state. Pagka nag-collide siya sa isang specific na border, magre-reset yung state niyan. Okay, so init ball, we have here the load image. Private void load image. So, kagaya rin ng ginawa natin kanina, image icon, ii is equal to new image icon. And src resources, breakout, tapos ball.png. Ayan. Tapos, kunin natin si image.ii.get image itself. Okay, no? Easy, easy. Next is for us to create the move method. Ngayon, see, again, based here sa sinulat ko sa module natin, the move method will now move the ball on the board. Okay? So, you have a separate method here for the move. Void move. Tapos you have private void reset. Reset state. Ayan. So, kapag ka nag-reset, yung state natin dito, ibalik natin dito yan. Tawagin natin si commons.initBall. So, ibig sabihin, tinatawag natin tong si commons na to, yung position ni initBall x, which is 200. Once na nag-reset yung state, ibig sabihin, either nag-game over, di ba? Or na ano siya, kumbaga, nag-collide sa, nahulog yung bola mismo. Ayan. So, init x, initBall y. Let us now set the direction, set x dir is equal to int x, the value of this one. Yan. Kunin natin yan. Kunin din natin tong si set y dir. Int y. Y dir is equal to y. And so far, okay naman to eh. Set x dir, pero bakit ako may error dito? Okay. We have here int get y dir and return y dir. And so get y dir, return y dir. Bakit ako may error? Okay. So wala pa akong yung sa move kasi di pa natin natatapos yung move natin. So i-ano natin yan. Let's actually try to work on this one. Yung mga errors nito later on. So dito tayo. Pasok tayo ngayon sa move method. Si move method, again, dito yung part ng ito. Diba? So kapag siya yung magpapamove sa bola natin. So x dir y is equal to plus equals y direction followed by if the position of the x value actually hits the 0. Let's call the set x dir as 1. Otherwise, we have an x which is kapag na-reach niya yung commons na value niya, yan. Yung commons width niya is 300. Kapag dumaan na siya dito sa may 300, ibig sabihin, umakyat na. Yan. System.out.println. Print natin to as a log. The image width. Ayan. Tapos, let's set the x dir value as -1. If the x here, the y is equal to 0, pagka na-reach niya yung y position, let us simply set the y position as 1. Pag-move lang yan, pag-ikot-ikot lang yung bola. Para makakreate siya ng illusion na tumatakbo talaga yung bola. Or nagbabounce talaga siya from one point to another. Okay, so far we have so okay naman, no? Namang problema. Common set width. Sige, copy nyo muna. Okay na yung ball natin eh. That's the ball.java program. And so far it's actually very to call this one very short. Ito, importante to eh. Yan. The brick and the ball program. And next, lastly, we have here the paddle. The paddle class here, it simply encapsulates the paddle object in the breakout game. Ito. Yung dito. Diba? So, the paddle is controlled with left and right arrow keys by pressing the arrow key. Yan. So we set the direction variable, and by releasing the arrow key, we set the dx variable to 0. And this way, the paddle stops moving. So meron ka na ngayong key press and key released sa loob ni paddle mo. So inside the paddle.java program, doon natin siya i-implement lahat ng clicks natin, lahat ng clicks natin. So therefore, we should have here an import java.out.event, which is a key event, and import the javax.swing, which is image icon as well. So kagaya rin ng ginawa natin kanina dito. And kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina dito kay Brick and si Ball, let's inherit all of the sprite naman. So we have here the initial position ni paddle. Let's add here the constructor, public paddle. Madami to. Init paddle. Set natin dito yung properties ni paddle. Private void init paddle. Okay, let's load the image. Let's get the image dimension. Let us also reset the state. Kumbaga babalik siya sa pinaka common na state niya. Yan. So you have 3. You have here private void load image, and you have here private void reset state. Siyempre, para mawala lang yung error natin. So ayusin natin to. Pagka nag-reset yung state natin, commons.init paddle, which is the position of x, the y paddle, which is the position of init paddle pala to. Init paddle y. Ayan. So, I guess, meron na akong itatago dito na part ng code natin. I am assuming na okay na kayo dito, no? So, pagsamahin ko na tong dalawang to para kahit papano hindi na siya cluttered. Ayan. Ayan. Para lumuwag ng konti dito. Reset state. Now, for the load image, let's copy and paste itong image icon natin kanina dito. And let's simply change the path for the paddle. Let's name that as paddle.png. Again, make sure na pareho This is paddle.png. Yan. So paddle.png. Next here is the move. Parang yung kanina, yung move natin. Itong move natin. But then the move here simply has like, x and y lang, x lang naman ang naaan natin dito. Nagagalaw. So void move. We will be calling this as well. Mamaya sa may board.java natin. Tapos if x is greater than or equal to 0, yan, x is equal to 0. If the x position is greater than or equal to the commons width, yan, minus the image width. Yung lang to, yung position lang ng paddle, yung pag-move natin. Commons.width, image width. Okay. So far, okay lang yan. Next here is the key pressed and key released. So once again, kapag nag-press tayo, the x value will now be changed depending kung saan natin siya pinipress. If we press on left, automatic, the x value will negate. Magiging negative yan kasi pa left Pagka pa right, magiging positive. So we have here void key pressed key event e. I'll name that as int key is equal to e.get key code if key is equal to the key event dot vk underscore left. What will happen? The dx will now be -1. Mag-negate siya ng paisa-isang resolution. Otherwise, kapag left yan, key event.vk underscore right, si dx mo magiging, kasi yun lang naman ginagalaw natin, yun yung kagandahan nito, di ba? Yan, magiging +1 siya. Isa lang ang ginagalaw natin dito, bahala si ball ang gumalaw. And the algorithm for the ball movement is already included here in the move. mismo. So, wala ka na magiging problema. Ang lalagyan mo na lang mamaya na algorithm is actually the collision, which is actually the longest part ng code natin. Yan. So, if we press the key, that will happen. If we released the key event E, what will happen? Int key is equal to e.getKeyCode. Again, kapag ka nag-release tayo ng key dito, magre-reset yung state. So, ibig sabihin, babalik siya sa 0. Yan. So, kapag ka, pagka left, key event dot vk underscore left, magiging cdx mo is 0. Let's copy and paste that. If this is right, again, released. Dx is equal to 0. Oh, working. Yan. So, ang ganda ng code natin eh. Prepare na natin lahat. Di ba? Prepare na natin lahat and in-implement na natin lahat ng classes natin. And this is actually the part where we will now be making the game works properly. So, meron ka na kasing key press dito eh. No? So, hindi ka na mahihirapan kapag gusto mo na siyang paganahin later on. Init paddle, reset state. Okay. Di bale, malapit na tayong matapos. Ito na lang, itong board.java na lang. Okay, so si board.java, let's go back to our module. This is actually the board class in which we will be putting the game logic. So we have here some methods na inintroduce ko in which we will actually do one by one as well. So first of all, let us go ahead and import the following packages. Kasi ito na yung pinakamabigat pinakamabigat na part na to ng coding natin. So we have java.swing, jpanel. We have here java.swing, the timer. We also have here the java.out.color. We also have here the java.out.dimension. Kukunin kasi natin yung dimension mamaya ng mga images natin. We also have here the font. We also have here the font metrics. We also have here the graphics. Java.out.graphics. And si graphics 2D natin. Yan. We will also be checking the points. Java.out.point and import java.out.rendering hints para mas maganda yung pagkaka-render niya later on. Si java.out.toolkit. Yung mga events natin, java.out.event.action event. Oops. Yan, action event, action listener, key event, and key listeners or key adapter. Ayan. Okay, so meron na tayong kompleto na, no? We have 15 import packages. Next, in-extend na natin si jpanel, so everything is working. Let's declare the following variables here. We have the timer, in which will actually serve as the delay or the speed of the ball itself. Timer. We have here a string message in which kapag ka natapos na. Oops. Private. This should be private. Yan. We have here, let's call the ball object. Let's also call the paddle. Lahat ng components ni paddle and ball, lagay natin dyan. Let's also call the brick. Si brick naman, naka-array yan kasi 30 ang gagawin natin kay brick. We have here the boolean in-game. Same lang din nung kanina, nung snake natin. So, in-game is equal to true. Now, let's call here the constructor. Pasot ko nga to. Yan. Let's call here the constructor. Public board. And let's simply set here the... Oops, 10 minutes na lang pala. So, mag-extend tayo ng konti, no? Tapusin natin yung code natin. So init board, private void init board. Okay, this is where we will be adding the key listener, which is the new T adapter. Ito yung pantawag natin mamaya. Okay, so mag-error pa yan. Let's set the focusable into true. Let us also set the preferred size into depending on the dimension na gagamitin natin from the commons. So we have here the commons.width. Yan. And commons.height naman. So tatawagin natin to. Itong part na to. Oops. And let's call here the game init. Diyan mangyayari yung game natin later on. No? So gawin muna natin. Tanggalin muna natin yung mga error natin. So we have public void paint component. Graphics G. Let's add that. Let's make sure to add that. Hindi pwedeng mawala yan, no? Let's also have here the private class T adapter. Ayan. In which simply extends the key adapter natin. Ayan. So, ganyan muna siya. And let's proceed with the game init. Now, si game init kasi, again, this will be a method in which we will be creating the ball, the paddle, and the 30 different bricks. So, yan. Nandito naman yan sa may module natin. So, implement natin yan. Private void, game init. Okay. So, let's name the bricks here. Lagay natin dito ng value na commons.number of bricks. Ang number of bricks natin is 30. Ayan o. Diba? Let's instantiate the ball. Let us also instantiate the paddle. Tapos, let's set the K. Let's declare a variable K. Kung saan, ito lang yung pag-instantiate natin ng brick isa-isa. Yan. So, pwede na natin ito i-copy. Kung sa end nyo gusto nyo ito i-copy, okay lang din. Basically, yan lang din yung code na para ma-instantiate natin yung tatlong beses, di ba? Pero nakaposition siya into by 5. So, for int I is equal to 0, tapos into 5. Again, position lang nito into 5. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Diba? Tapos I++. Tapos meron ka ulit panibagong for loop in which we have 0, 6, 5 by 6, J++, and something like that. Tapos i-ano na natin siya, instantiate na natin siya isa-isa, new brick. We have the value of J, isa-isa yan, multiplied by 40, the size, plus 30, I multiplied by 10, plus 50. You can actually play around with these values, no? Kung lalo kapag gusto nyo iset yung mga sizes ni bricks natin. So, bricks K. Ayun. Ayun, nawala yung error. No? Bricks K is equal to new brick. J times 40 plus 30. Y times 10 plus 50. So, basically, this is the size of their brick. So, timer is equal to new timer commons dot period. Yung period natin, which is 10 milliseconds. And we will be calling the game cycle later on as well. So, meron tayong game cycle na tatawagin dyan. Yan. Si game cycle, kung titignan natin si game cycle dito, yan. The timer periodically calls the action performed method, which actually calls the do game cycle, which creates a game cycle itself. So, dito yung umaandar na mismo yung bola natin. So, tatawagin natin isa-isa, and dito na aandar mismo yung bola natin ng patuloy-tuloy. Paulit-ulit yan. Okay? So, we have here the game cycle just below the T adapter. Ayan. Just below the T adapter. Private class game cycle. Ayan. And we'll be implementing the action listener on this part. So, since we implemented the action listener here, we will be adding here the public void action performed method and action event action event E. Tapos dito, tatawagin natin si mismong cycle ng gaming natin. So si game cycle here, this will now call the number 1. Tatawagin natin yung pag-move ni ball. Okay? Yung pag-move ni paddle, and this can be controlled, diba, by left and right. And we'll be having here a repaint method. Paulit-ulit niya gagawin yan. Okay. Ang saya actually na ito. So private class, game cycle. May error ako dito. This should not be a method. And class kasi yan. Next, balik tayo dito kay game init. So far, so good tayo kay game init, no? Let's proceed here with the paint component. This is actually where we will now be doing the rendering hints para mas maging maayos yung pagkaka-render natin sa kanya. So, super, paint component, graphics 2D, G2D, i-cast natin yan, graphics 2D, G. Tapos, let's set the rendering hints, dot key, anti-aliasing, comma, ano na ba nilalagay natin dito? Value.on, tama. Value anti-alias on. Yan. Rendering hints, that value under, okay, set rendering hints. Pero bakit ako error dito? Okay. Nakalimutan ko, mamaya, I think may nakalimutan tayo, but nag-error dyan. So, set rendering hints, that key underscore anti-aliasing, rendering hints, that dot value underscore render quality. Ayan. So, graphics G, super, dot paint component G, graphics 2D, G2D is equal to graphics 2D. Tama naman. Dito lang tayo may error. I-find out ko kung bakit. Okay. Sige, mamaya. Trabuhin kita mamaya. Or mali lang yung pagkaka-write ko dito ng rendering hints. Rendering hints, nagamit naman siya eh. So, sige. I think may problema lang talaga dito sa code natin na to. Yan. Spelling. Okay. Ayun. So, rendering hints dito. Yung spelling lang. Next, if the game is running, okay, time for us to draw the objects, just like what we have done earlier. Otherwise, let's call the game finished. So, extend lang tayo ng konti, mga 10 minutes. Patapos naman na tayo. So, the game finished here, we will be calling the game finished method. Diba? Tapos, gawa tayo dito ng toolkit, which is, again, very important dahil ito yung pagsisync natin eh. Get default toolkit, sync itself. So, gawin natin si draw objects and si game finish. So, private void draw objects. We have here graphics G2D. And we have here private void game finished. Graphics 2D. G2D. Graphics 2D. G2D. Okay. So, si draw object naman, dito natin ngayon i-draw si ball natin and si paddle. So, dito siya na part na yun. How can we do that? By drawing the image of the ball. Yan. Get image of the ball. The position of the ball. Yan. Their position. Tapos si get image width natin. Yan. Si width. Tapos si ball that get image height natin. And let's reference that to itself. Para hindi tayo mahirapan. Ayun. Diba? Perfect. Let's also draw here the paddle. Paddle that get image. Paddle that get x. Mali. Paddle that get x. Paddle get y. And of course, paddle that get image width. Dapat ito ha, width. Mali ako dyan. Ayan. Paddle that get image height. And lastly, reference to itself. Okay, so every time na di-destroy yung bricks natin, okay, something should happen. We are just simply destroying the bricks once na nag-collide siya. So, gagawa tayo dito ng for loop kung saan i-ano natin yun. I-represent natin yun. For as long as the commons, that number of bricks is I is less than the 30. Position here is, yan. If the bricks is not yet destroyed, rather, okay, if the bricks is not yet destroyed, of course, i-draw na ngayon natin lahat ng bricks natin isa-isa. Yan, so dito yung bricks natin. So get image, yan, bricks, tama ba? Bricks dot get, ano to? Teka, ayun, dot get x. Okay, get x. And followed by bricks dot get y. Oops, this should be array. Dot get y. Tapos si bricks ulit. Yung isa-isang bricks natin yan, dinidrawing natin yan eh. Bricks dot get image width. Yan. Get image width. Get image height. Okay. Teka, ayusin ko nga yung pagkakasulat natin dito para hindi kayo malito. Yan. Get image height and reference to itself, which is this. Yan. So basically, drawing na natin, no? Okay na si lahat ng object natin. So the question here is that, mapapagana na ba natin siya? Magpapakita na ba lahat ng objects natin sa mismong program natin? The answer is yes, including the ball. The ball is now moving, but then the paddle cannot be controlled as of the moment. Yan. So it cannot be controlled as of the moment. So para makontrol natin si paddle na yan, dito natin i-work out yan sa may t-adapter na to. So we have here an override annotation, yung parang kanina. So public void key released. Okay. So key event e. And we will be calling here the key released method na ginawa natin, followed by the key press itself. So public void key press key event e paddle.key pressed e. So let's try to run the program. We should expect that the paddle is now working. Ayan, so it's moving na, no? Nagba-bounce back na rin si ball. Nandito yung code para mag-bounce back si ball. And there you go. Hindi pa nagko-collide, ha? Hindi pa nagko-collide si mismong ano natin, si mismong ball kay paddle and kay bola. 'Di ba? Although nagko-collide na siya dito sa may ano natin, sa may borders natin, which is actually good already. Now let's actually work on with the game finished para at least paunti-unti natin siyang matapos. Ang game finish lang, parang yung ginawa din natin kanina, 'di ba? So we have here font. Tapos new font. I'll name this as, this time siguro instead of Helvetica, Verdana naman. Tapos font at bold. Pero matagal itong magpakita eh. Dapat maubos muna yung mga bricks. So this, that get font metrics. Let's name that as font. Let's set the color. Color that black. Let's set the font as font. And now let's draw the message here. So first of all, we have the message, followed by i-gitna ulit natin, commons.width, width minus the font metrics. Igigitna natin siya ulit, no? Font metrics. The string width divided by 2. Followed by like that. And comments width. Aha. Ayan. Pero may error ako dito. Bakit nga eh? So, kulang ako dito ng isa. Tapos sobra ako dito. Ayun. So, nawala na yung error. So, okay na. Yung game finish natin has been successfully implemented. So, therefore, the only thing that we are missing in this program is actually our collision. So, by adding here sa may game cycle natin ng collision, dito tayo sa collision. Medyo mahaba tong collision eh. So, I think pwede tayong ito. Itong sa collision natin. Hindi ko na nilagay yung collision dito kasi medyo mahaba ito. Pero explain ko pa rin sa inyo yung nangyayari sa collision natin. Well, basically, the idea of this one is that if the ball is colliding with the paddle, diba, magbabounce ulit si ball. If the ball is colliding or collided with the brick itself, yan, may nangyayari din at the same time. So, in order for us to do that, we have to add here what we called a check collision method dito. So, we have a check collision method. Diba? Error yan sa ngayon. So, we have, add ko na rin dito si stop game pagka na-game over na. So, basically, this is false. Tapos si timer, let's stop. Lang siya. And lastly, we add the check, private void check collision method. And like that. Now, we have here the following conditions. If the ball that get wrecked, so nag-collide na, ibig sabihin, get max y. Yan. If the ball that get wrecked, that get max y is greater than the bottom edge, commons dot bottom edge, yan, which is, the bottom edge is 390. Pagka nahulog na, take note, pag nahulog na yung bola, of course, game over. Tandaan nyo na, pag nahulog na yung bola, game over na yan. Next is for us to have here a for loop in which it will simply check the number of bricks, yan, equals 0, and number of bricks. Haba, no? Ganyan talaga. I++. Tama ba to? J is equal to 0. Condition. Tapos ito is I++. Commons that number of bricks. And I++. Cannot resolve the symbol I. This should be I. Ayan. So, if the brick is destroyed, yan, of course, dagdagan natin ng value si J++. So, ibig sabihin nito, dito yung, kung gusto mo maglagay ng scoring method or system, scoring mechanics, bibilangin mo yung mga napatumba mo na or na-destroy mo na box. Dito mo ilalagay yan sa J++ na yan. Okay, so you can have here, you can have a variable here in score is equal to score ++ later on. So, bahala ka. Diba? If J is equal to the number of bricks, ibig sabihin na ubos na, let's add here a victory message. Yan. Tapos, of course, we will stop the game. Game over na yan eh. Okay. Next. Medyo dito tayo sa may tapos na yung for loop natin. If the ball now actually intersects with the paddle. Take note ha, kapag ka nag-intersect na si ball that get wrecked intersects. Oops. Yan, kapag ka nag-intersect na yan kay paddle, get wrecked. So, kapag ka tumalbog na siya dun sa paddle, something should happen already. So, basically here, we will now be changing the position of the paddle. Yan, the paddle L position. Teka, i-ano ko na lang to. Copy-paste ko na lang dito. Ayan. So, we have here the paddle L position, which simply gets the current position of the paddle and the position of the get min X. Yan. Nag-update lang siya basically. So, umuusod-usod lang siya, gumaganyan lang siya. Okay. Now, the first, the second, and the third, and the fourth position here are the position of your left paddle only. So, kung i-run kasi natin yan, wala pang mangyayari. Pero, mapapansin natin na pwede nang mag-intersect si ball natin kay paddle. Pero hindi pa kay brick mismo. Ayan o. So, kay paddle, syempre hindi pa kompleto yung code natin dyan, di ba? So, yan natin yan. Let's complete the code here. Let me copy saan pa yung, kasi syempre, sobrang time na no? Copy-paste lang din natin to. If the ball position is less than the first position itself, yan, we will simply setting the direction of the ball into -1 and the direction of the ball into -1 for both X and Y position. So, ang ginagawa talaga nito in idea is kapag ka yung bola is nag-intersect or nag-collide doon sa paddle, diba? Iaano siya, kumbaga tatalbog siya kung saan yung direction na ginalaw mo rin si paddle mo. This is actually very tiny detail ng program natin, which is very important as well. Kung i-analyze kasi natin maigi yung movement ni bola, yan, i-analyze natin yung movement ni bola. Kapag ka ginalaw mo to, there is also a possibility na maging straight yung pag-ano ni ball mo. Yung pag-move niya. There's also a possibility na mag-slant siya if na-slant mo yung paggalaw ni bola mo. So, dito yun magpapakita. Ito yung code na yun para doon. Ayan o. So, kapag ka-right, ganun din siya. Diba? Now, let's actually work on with the bricks itself. Si bricks naman, kapag ka this is inside the if statement once na nag-intersect si bola kay paddle. Kapag ka nag-intersect naman si bola kay brick, an if statement should happen. I mean, for loop should happen. Mahaba rin ito, pero don't worry, naka-prepare naman yung code natin dito. So, for int I, titignan niya isa-isa. Commons, that number of bricks, I++. Ayan. So, titignan niya ulit dito, if the ball get rec that intersects the bricks, which is actually what kind of brick ang dinaanan niya, tapos lagyan natin din ng get rec dito, something should happen. Ayan. So, kapag ka nag-intersect si bola kay brick, in which nasa loob siya ng for loop, ibig sabihin, tinitignan niya kung aling bricks ang natamaan niya. So, if that's the case, let's actually declare the following. We have here the ball left, ball height, ball width, and the ball top. So, this will just simply get the position of the ball initially. Okay? So, yun yung mga position niya. Now, after the position of the ball, we will now be converting each positions of the ball into their corresponding position. And medyo binibilisan ko na para at least kasi time nyo na, baka hanapin na kayo. Point right, point left, kino-convert lang natin siya. This is actually built-in kasi. This is built-in algorithm ng game na to. Kaya, if you want to play around with their positionings and with how the bricks and the ball and the paddle is behaving, pwede mo siyang i-move dito. Pero, again, that's the algorithm. Pero if the bricks is somehow, kung ano man yung natamaan na bricks is actually not yet destroyed, ayan, it will now check. This will actually still check if, of course, tinamaan mo rin contains point right. Ibig sabihin, if the brick contains point right, yung nandito na part ng program natin, the position of the ball itself will change. Nagkakaroon yan kasi ng effect na kung ano yung tinamaan mo, nag-change din yung position ng bola mo, yung mismong trajectory niya. 'Di ba? Else if tinamaan niya naman dito is si left, automatic, kapag tumama sa left yung bola, yung set naman ng direction mo ng bola is pupunta sa right, gaganin na siya, pataas na siya. 'Di ba? Same goes true kapag tinamaan niya si point top, bababa siya. Otherwise, pag tinamaan mo si bricks na point bottom, gaganon din siya. Kumbaga babalik siya. Pagka tumama yung bola dun sa brick, a motion will happen. Opposite motion will happen. Kaganon din kapag kay right and left. So, this time, the bricks will now be set destroyed as true. Ayun. Diba? So, ano na siya? Na-destroy na. Basically, okay na yung magiging program mo. Saka lang siya magdi-destroy. So, once again, this part of the code is where if the ball intersected with the brick. So, kung i-run natin yung program, I hope this should run in properly. Ayan. Yung initial position ni paddle mo, ayan, nag-set din. Ayan o. So, pag tinamaan ni paddle, ayan, pag tumama sa baba, pumupunta rin sa baba yung bola ulit. Pag tinamaan mo ng pa-straight, ayan, nag-change din. Diba? Kapag yan, yun. Point left, point right, point top, point bottom yan. And actually, that is how the breakout game is working. So, your final performance task one of these days, kapag in-upload ko na yung module 8 nyo, modification of the codes na pinapakita ko sa inyo. So, you will try to modify the code and you will simply add a very simple mechanic lang naman. Napakadali lang. Hindi kayo masyadong mahirapan. For as long as napapagana nyo na yung code ninyo, okay na. Magiging wala na kayong problema. Question so far? Yan. Question so far?